Good morning. Thank you for being here. We're going to open up with our work session for our budget this morning. Um, I'm going to ask if, since I did it yesterday, I'm going to ask if um, Commissioner Edwards, if you would lead us in our prayer this morning and lead us in our pledge as well. Thank you.
Well, let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for another wonderful day that we can come together and do the county's business. We ask that you give us wisdom and discernment. We ask all these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Morning. I'm gonna turn it over to Brittany first. Again, thank you for being here this morning. We're gonna go ahead and get going with our work session this morning. Brittany, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Good morning. It might have went down. No, it's gonna come on. Did it not? Might just talk up a little bit. Just might talk up just a little bit.
Up first, we have Judge Branch with juvenile, and I'll just let you know that me and her are still working through her budget, so she may mention some changes that are different than what's on your sheet. Her information can be found on page 105.
All right.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, y'all know I'm Judge Branch, this is Judge Edgar. I guess most everybody knows Judge Edgar too. But
We
we both
do.
thought we'd both come today.
Thank you guys for being here this morning.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get myself situated. Hold on a second. And get my eyes on, because you know I can't see anything. All right, so I'm a little old school, so what I'm gonna do is just go by the line items and tell you where I decided to make a few changes, where we made some cuts, and then a couple things I was asking for. Judge Edgar's here to present some information to you just regarding our numbers, and we wanted to give you kind of an update. I don't know if anybody ever gives y'all an update on what happens when you give us a position, but last year, y'all gave us a position for a truancy intake officer, and we wanted to give you some information just so you'd have it to see kind of the good you've done, because it's really made a difference. So, all right, I will cut to the chase. How about that? So, if you'll go through your budget items, and you know I cannot see that, but if you will, I'm going to start with just the basics and not talk about employee staff. Professional contracted services, if you'll look at that line item, I'm looking at cutting that $3,000. So if you'll, I'll give you the totals afterwards, but taking that down to 12,000. One of the things that Brittany was talking about is we're kind of in the middle of doing our contract negotiations, because this is the time of year that we also redo that with all of our attorneys. And so, depending if they all come back or not, this is the category for when we use the ones that are not under actual formal contract, but we basically, it's kind of like having a conflict attorney. It's when they get paid an hourly rate. I think I can cut it this much, but I may use them a little more next year, so I wasn't quite sure how much to cut them, so I'm going to cut 3,000, and then see by the next year I should have a much better idea, and if I want to cut them further, I will. Okay. Court reporter services, this will be actually, I'm doing a pretty big cut. I'm cutting it $8,000. The reason is because under statute, we are allowed to record our hearings and not just have a court reporter. I think that we can use our court reporter for the really big hearings, like termination of parental rights, things that are very constitutional that may go up on appeal. But there are other basic reviews that we are allowed to record either with our audio in the courtroom or via Zoom if we're doing it virtually. And I think that we can save the county money by doing it that way. We've talked to some other courts that are around the state, and I'm going to try to do that and see if that's a possibility. So I was trying to be somewhat safe, but I'm going to take 8,000 out there, and so I'll let you know how that goes. Next line item, if you'll look at, most everything stays the same because a lot of things are just contracted services, but if you'll look at telephone and pagers, I'm asking for an increase of $1,200. We need 2 phones. We price them with financed, they're $50 a month. I need 2 phones for my on-call workers. I don't know if you're aware, but juvenile court's on call 24 hours a day. I have 4 people that do it, so 2 people would share one and the other 2 people would share one, and that's because we get calls all around the clock and on weekends regarding from law enforcement or other agencies and DFACs taking kids into care or having to arrange beds for RYDCs if should a child have to be detained. So I'm asking for that for those phones if possible. Postage, I don't think we're using more postage. I'm just assuming maybe postage went up. But you'll notice where we were with postage. We were already a little bit over, so I'm just asking for an additional $300. That would take that to $900. And then printing and binding, I'm going to take off $500, move it down to $700. I don't think that we need the full amount that we have in there. We do sometimes do some different brochures and things for our accountability courts, but I think that we could take some money out of that budget to help pay for those other things. Travel, we keep that relatively high. I'm going to take it down $1,000 and move it to $7,000. That is because every other year we really need to send 1 or 2 people to the National Drug Court Conference for the big accountability court, since we have 2 accountability courts. I don't send people every year. It gets really expensive, and I try to wait until they have one somewhat close by, maybe we don't have to do airfare. But I'll tell you that the conferences alone, like just the cost of the conference, is usually around $800 to $900 per person. That doesn't include like you staying overnight. So I'd like to keep the money in there. If I don't use it, obviously it just comes back, we just don't use it. But my goal was to send somebody this year. I didn't send anybody this past year. Okay, so take that down $1,000. Same with education and training, take that down $1,000, move it to $2,000. I use that part of the budget to do some education and training for our staff and DFACs, and we kind of collaborate in-house here in Newton County. I try to make sure that we do all of our CLEs and everything. We don't go out of state, we do everything within Georgia, but we are able to house some things in for my staff, like our intake workers, to do some additional training, but I don't think I need the full amount. So if you'll take $1,000 out for there. Other contracted services, that's really for interpreters, folks like that, when we have mostly our Spanish-speaking parents that come in, but I'm going to take that down $2,500 and move it to $4,000. I never know year to year if we're gonna have a lot of interpreters or not. It is one of those wavering things depending upon the clientele that I get. So I think I can do it with $4,000. If I can do it for less the next year, I will. But I said if I had another career, it should be that. It's very expensive. That are dry cleaners. General operating expenses, I'm gonna take that down $1,000 and move it to $14,000. That's kind of my catch-all for a lot of things we do, but I'm not using all of that money. If I can move it down further next year, I will, but I'm gonna take it down $1,000 for now. And food, I know this seems odd. I'm gonna ask for an additional $500 because food prices have gone up, so we'll make it $3,500. We have to keep a lot of food in our kitchen to make for kids that come in from detention or some of our dependency kids. They don't come with lunch, or they don't have breakfast, or I keep things there because I don't want our children to be hungry while they're waiting for court, or they got transported from Marietta or Gainesville or whatever and they didn't send them a lunch. It happens all the time. They're not supposed to do that, but it does happen. And so we keep, whether it's, all the little Crustables things in the freezer and Hot Pockets and granola bars, and I buy real juices. I don't buy fake juices. Waters, but good things for them, like in good snacks and different things. If we need to make sandwiches and fruit, I've bought fruit cups and things, but I want to make sure our kids are fed when they're here. Just seems not right to do that, but the food costs have gone up, so I'm asking for an additional $500 for food. So that being said, the overall savings there is $15,000, okay, coming off of that. I do that as my punch item to ask you for something else. So the 2 things I'm asking for then is, one, Judge Edgar's here, so we'll just act like we don't see her. I'm asking to move her to 4 days a week instead of 3. She's about to give you some numbers as to how our caseloads have gone up. We are in court literally 5 days a week, all right? So we are not judges that are in court a couple times a week. We're in there literally Monday through Friday. We're gonna explain our timelines in a minute and how the case volume has gone up. But the issue there is that I'd like to be able, well, we're gonna have to, because to meet the statutory timelines, we need to run some of our cases simultaneously, which means one of us could be in the courtroom while one of us is doing a hearing on Zoom. It's impossible to do that if I need her there at least 4 days a week to do that so that we can catch up on these cases. We're gonna give you the numbers in just a second. But if we did that, and I'm gonna ask for an increase then for her at $17,600. So I was trying to save money in the other category, so it'd only be $1,000 or $2,000 that I was asking additionally. The final item that we are asking for is a new position. It's a new deputy clerk 4 position for dependency cases. Those are your DFACS cases, the kids in foster care. I have 1 clerk now that does all of the dependency plus all of the finances for our office. If we are to be able to run back to back, both judges, we each need a clerk because they both have to be either with one of us on Zoom or one of us in the courtroom. And there's a lot that goes into that, but I'm gonna let her explain the numbers to you as to why. That position, though, so you can put pen to paper, is an additional, if it, the actual, I think it's a step one, I forgot to do the hourly rate, but the annual rate is $35,882 for that one position, okay? Keeping in mind plus benefits for positions. So I'm gonna turn this over to her so she can explain a little bit of the numbers, and then we can answer any questions that you have to maybe alleviate some of any of your concerns. Go right ahead, I'm gonna get out of your way.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So as Judge Branch mentioned, last year with the budget, you allowed us to add our truancy intake officer. And that has been absolutely invaluable both for our court, for the families and the children that we interact with, but even with the school system, because it is a very strong area where we work side by side with the school system. So I did want to say thank you for that. What that intake officer, I think Judge Branch made an excellent hire in the person, but what the position has been able to do is we have restarted the statutory school attendance, student attendance and school climate committee. It is interagency. It's set up by statute of various people who are on it by their position or their designees. We are supposed to meet 2 times a year. The committee's been working so well, we're now meeting every 2 months. It's interagency. We're sharing resources. We're sharing ideas. We're actually moving now to a more action plan phase. How can we work together to help create an environment in our school system, in our community, where school attendance is just something that everyone understands that they're supposed to do. And so that has been wonderful. Samantha Nix, our intake officer for truancy, has been integral in that process. But here's actually the big numbers. For the 2022-2023 school year, we have received 101 referrals for truancy-related charges. That means that student, that individual child, has missed at least 10 days of school, oftentimes a lot more, because the school system tries really hard to prevent it from getting to us. But 10 days by law is when they can be referred for charges. We have then created what Samantha's been able to do, is create a diversion program where she sits down, talks to them, tries to get some idea of what the underlying issues are, talks to them about setting a schedule. How do you meet the bus on time? What are the issues? Talking to the child about that. She currently has 70 of those 101 in that diversion program where she is meeting with them and their families regularly. Of the 101, only I think she said 4 have refused the program and gone straight to court, straight to charges, which most likely means probation. Only 5 of the 101 were removed and failed the program and went straight to charges. So the net result of that is we have approximately 90 children who have avoided probation and received assistance with developing school attendance as a routine and a goal, which is a significant win, because there's no reason a child needs to be on probation for not going to school, and they're going to school. So they're in school, they're not having charges, so that's been tremendous. So we did want to share that story. I did want to talk a little bit about the numbers, as Judge Branch mentioned. We are projecting a 15 to 20% caseload increase in several areas. We do keep up with our numbers on a calendar year instead of a fiscal year, so it doesn't quite match up with the budget. But in 2022, we had 665 referrals on our intake side.
That's delinquency.
Yeah, that's delinquency, criminal charges. Our language is totally different. Yeah. And we are projecting 104 referrals in 2023. On our actual delinquency hearings, so we get referrals in, but our intake sometimes handles them. They go through our various diversion programs. We have a number of hearings. We have to hear children on a very regular basis. In 2022, we had 647 hearings just on delinquency. We are projecting 792 this year. One giant area that's not going to sound like a huge number, but is a huge number in terms of how the law has changed. In July of 2022, the Georgia legislature changed and allowed the probate court to transfer to juvenile court anything that is in dispute about temporary guardianships. Those have historically been limited to the jurisdiction of the probate court. Now, at any point, if Judge Bryant or Judge Bell sees an issue, thinks that maybe there's something more going on here, they can send it over to us. We have averaged about 7 a year. We are projecting about 24. We've already had 7, and that's important. It doesn't sound like much, but it is a number of hearings, because everything we do is a lot of hearings. The only area where we are trending slightly lower which is probably a good thing for the community, is in dependencies. Those are DFACS cases. DFACS is taking fewer children into care. However, what we are seeing is the children who are coming into care have higher needs. They are at greater risk. So our hearings are longer because we're having to talk about services. We're having to talk about residential treatment facilities. We're having to get parents into substance abuse treatment and things of that nature. So it's just lower number, but more intensive. In addition to that, we do handle transfers from Superior Court. We handle private dependencies. Those are cases where DFACS is not involved, but a family member or individual who's aware of a child, most often being abandoned and left with someone. They do come into our court as well. We do handle termination of parental rights and permanent guardianships after a dependency. Why all this is really important is because by law, we are not allowed to run a backlog. You hear that a lot with courts, especially post-COVID. Judge Branch, I don't really know what that word is from the standpoint of how we conduct court. If a child comes into DFACS custody, for example, within the first 75 days, they will have been seen by the judge at least 4 times within 75 days. And most of the time, those hearings run, I would say, an average to an hour, hour and a half. And we have to put those on the calendar wherever we can find time. So as Judge Branch mentioned, we are in court almost always 4 days a week, and most of the time 5 days a week. We try to use our Fridays for longer, more intensive hearings. In addition, you have very similar timeframes on delinquency charges. If a child is detained, they have to be seen within 72 hours. And then if they remain detained because of the severity of the charges, even the trial is accelerated, and we are on a much, much shorter time frame. So because of that, that is why, as I said, as Judge Branch said, she is asking for a little bit more of my time, but most importantly, where it's required is on the deputy clerk position, because quite simply, we cannot run simultaneous court right now, even if we had to, because we don't have enough clerks. We have to have a clerk in the courtroom with the judge, and then we also have to have a clerk available to do the clerical and prep work for the next day's court and the follow-up from the previous day. So that's kind of where we come from on our numbers, but.
I was going to borrow this for just a second.
Yeah,
I know that she spoke to you some about the delinquency. Delinquency hearings, we're projecting 792 delinquency hearings just in this year. So we're clear. I'm the only one that right now really that hears delinquency hearings. So those 792 are mine. And then I do half of the dependency. Judge Edgar occasionally does a delinquency if she has a kid that's crossed over that's in DFACS care, but then she does the other half of the dependency. It's just a lot. It's a lot of hearings. It's a lot of kids. The timelines are really strict. So, you know, I've got 2 days once they're detained if they're on a complaint, 5 days if they're on a warrant. If they're detained, additional 10 days, they have to be back in court for an arraignment. Everything is really tight. The trial dates are tight with delinquency for criminal charges within 30 days, especially if they're detained. And unfortunately, we're seeing so many more, I guess, concerning offenses coming out of Newton County with things. I mean, I have to be honest, there's generally, if I see guns in schools, I see them a lot. A lot of those children are detained, which means my timelines are a lot shorter. I'm taking a pretty big stance on safety within our schools. So, I mean, I would like to say in years past when I prosecuted a long time ago, you know, I was seeing like little thefts or shoplifting. Like, I don't even see that in my court anymore. We're handling all that on the diversion side. My staff handles all that. What I'm seeing are generally more violent offenders, and I'm seeing more kids that have more significant mental health issues. I mean, consistently that I'm having to get DFACS involved with. We're trying to younger kids, lots of younger kids. So if I've got, you know, 10, 11, 12-year-olds coming in, a lot of them won't be competent at some point to stand trial, but I have all these services and things I'm having to put around them, and I see them often because I need to watch them to make sure they're safe. I need to make sure that they actually have supervision. We need to make sure that the community's safe. So that's one of the reasons that we're letting you know all of this. And the bottom line is that we can't afford, or we're not allowed to have the backlog. So I can't not do the time frames. I mean, I know that I'm in court. We've got court all day tomorrow. I'm supposed to be in court now. I guess they're starting it sort of without me until I get there. I mean, I've got court Friday. I've got a whole hearing. The 3-hour hearing just starts off first thing in the morning Friday. But it's that way all week. So I think it would be different if we weren't in court all the time, but we actually are. So those are things we want to put for you. Do y'all have some questions for us? Because usually y'all have some questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Sanders.
First, thank you so much for all that you do. When you were talking about the mental health piece, that really is my area. That was one reason why I was trying to get the 2 therapists for our children, because they actually requested it. And that's why I was trying to get that passed here with the commissioners to make sure we have therapy for
Well,
our,
it's a need, and that's one of the reasons I have 2 accountability courts. One's a behavioral health court just for our kids, and that's for kids that have such significant mental health issues that it doesn't seem like, what they don't really need is probation. What they need is mental health treatment.
That's
And so we
right.
put them, just like any other drug court or mental health court, I have the same thing in juvenile court. And if they complete everything they need to do and do their groups and individual, we work with families, same thing like that you're talking about, then we can dismiss their charges. And that to me is a win, because I just want a healthy kid.
exactly. So my colleagues, I hope you're hearing this from the judge. That was one of the reasons why we were trying to get those 2 therapists. So thank you for that. But also
Yes,
when I was listening to you about the food for the youth, do you all partner with a nonprofit? Because they can apply for the ARPA funds that we have for nonprofits for food pantries, and to be
No.
able to maybe donate that to
We
you
partner with
all.
them with our families, with our accountability courts. We use them all the time as far as making sure that we have all of our kids in our system, and their families are fed that need to be, because we work with DFACS, but we also within our accountability courts, but we don't partner with them as far as just having basic needs or basic food, because we have to have things also that absolutely like don't go bad that we can keep for a long period of time. So I don't know, but that may be an option that we could see
Yes.
about partnering, and I might get some more information from you. to
Because
see
they
what
can
we
apply
do
for
with
our ARPA
kids.
dollars, because we
Okay.
have that out right now, and it's
Okay.
up to, I want to say 50,000 for food pantries. So if you know one in the area, make sure they apply for those funds, and they can
Okay.
partner with you to make sure your section is housed as well, providing
Okay.
that food
That's a
service.
wonderful idea.
So I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to give you
No,
that
thank you.
information.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you. Any other questions regarding just any, yes, sir?
Hold on, got one. Commissioner Epps, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you
Thank you.
both for presenting this morning. So, Judge Yeager, I heard you say that the number of DFACS referrals or cases had decreased, but the intensity had increased.
Yes.
Was there a threshold that changed that took away the low-hanging fruit, or?
Well, I'm going to say this as diplomatically as I can. DFACS across the state is struggling. They have a real serious hiring issues. They do not pay their case workers enough. I'm not saying anything controversial there. I think if any of us understood what those wonderful human beings do, you would understand and agree. Part of that I believe they are, because they have limited staffing, they are really only jumping in where they absolutely have to. And they are trying as much as they can not to take children into custody. In fact, there's litigation, I think, currently being discussed now because they've had an epidemic of hoteling children. And we have a problem with that here, where a child is in DFACS custody, supposed to be in a foster home, they end up being hoteled. So that's why we believe we're seeing a little bit of decrease in the numbers from DFACS, but when they are coming in, they have real serious issues because DFACS is trying everything they possibly can to not remove a child.
What I can tell you this too is that one of the ways we're trying to help with that is I have a family treatment court, which is basically a drug court or mental health court for parents whose children either have been taken into foster care or at risk. So we've been partnering here with Newton County, but also with Walton County, since we're a circuit, if there are children that are basically in what's called family preservation, so they may be staying with a relative, they haven't totally taken them into foster care, or if there's a way to maintain them within the home, but also get mental health or drug and alcohol treatment for the parents, I'm willing to take them into my court and not necessarily place the children in foster care if I've got a safe place for them to be, to help alleviate that problem. So we're trying to figure out different ways that we can manage that, but also taking a child into foster care is traumatic in its own sense, right? You're removing them from everything they know, even though what they know may not be in their best interest at the time, what's going on in the house. But that's still traumatic for the children. So if there's a way for us to do it differently, we're looking at all the avenues to do that. That doesn't mean, though, once they come across my desk or I see them in delinquency or I see things that are going on, that we just don't have another option, right? I just don't have another option. That I don't take them into care and I take them from the bench. I mean, sometimes I do. But we're doing everything we can. I'm partnering with DFACS, God bless them, and having people come over even during my different hearings I have in court to say, I see something there's something wrong here. Can y'all go ahead and get in the house and start offering some services, see what you can do to try to put some services around this family so that we don't end up in a situation with foster care. Does that mean the hearings take a lot longer? Yes. We're doing a lot of interviews and we're sitting there in court and brainstorming, but it's worth it in the long run if we can do that.
Well, thank you. I was just curious as to the volume change, and I figured it was somebody's criteria had changed down the line. It sounds like it's DFACS. They just have to. They don't have they can't handle the volume.
It's probably not us because one of the side effects of that is if Judge Branch, for example, sees them in another capacity on the delinquency side, and she's tried all the things that she was just mentioning, she might in fact be the one taking them into care. And even though DFACS was involved, DFACS just had not sort of pulled the trigger on making that move.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you. First of all, like Judge, getting for being a little late, sometimes be one of those mornings, and we have a daughter that goes to school, and sometimes I have to take her to school, and sometimes I take her to school even though she rides the bus anyway. So I kind of understand a little bit some of the issues. Could you tell me, and I'm not asking for names, how many kids, if you would say, well, there's 20 Afro-American kids, 20 Caucasian kids, is there a number that you can share with us that you may be seeing in your court?
Are you talking about for criminal charge, or are you talking about kind of like what the diversity is between
Yes,
maybe
ma'am.
on the delinquency side, like criminal charges?
Yes, ma'am.
or
Either or both. Yes, ma'am.
I would say that we are probably about, and I'm going back to my numbers because we participate in what's called
Just an estimate.
a program, so we actually
Yes,
look
ma'am.
at this. But we haven't had a meeting in a while, so I'm trying to figure where we are right now. I'm going to say we're probably about 60% African American, about 35% Caucasian, and about 5%, and I'm going to say Hispanic or
Yes,
Indian
ma'am.
or other as far as where we are. It's kind of like, we stay kind of within the
Yes,
mix of
ma'am.
the actual demographics of the county. Generally, it's real close. And it's one of those, we're part of what's called Judicial Detention Alternatives, which is a meeting that we do within the state. Some courts choose to participate and some don't. We do participate because we're trying to figure out ways to not detain kids.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we look at different avenues as to try to not do that. And one of the things they look at, I know we do that, Judge Wood and Rockdale participates in it, and we like to be able to look at the demographics, like how many kids do I have coming out of it? And we also look at areas of town. I know you and I talk about some more. We look at like what are we looking at on this end of town versus this end of town. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to focus on is to what can we do to keep those numbers, first of all, low. I
Absolutely.
don't want to detain children I don't have to detain unnecessarily. But at the same time, I am going to detain and keep the community safe or a child safe if I have concerns there. That's everything from dealing with firearms, but it's also dealing with, we have, like every other county, issues with sex trafficking. We don't want to think about it, but I've got kids being sex trafficked out of here, and sometimes I'm
Yes, ma'am. You're right. You're right.
but those might be, there's a lot of my females, so generally we have more males than we have females, but my females are going up, so if you want to ask about gender also, so, that makes a difference. So sometimes those children may not have as, more dangerous charges, but their life that they're living in the predicament they're putting themselves in is beyond dangerous. And so I'm having to look at that. I've had kids that we've had detained, we've had to send back to their families in New York, we've had them in Texas. I mean, there are rules that govern that interagency, the Department of Juvenile Justice, and ways to do that. But then once I get my hands on them, I've got to hold them and keep them. So, it's kind of
Yes,
fluid.
ma'am.
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
but that's kind of what we're looking at. And so those cases can be a little lengthy. But I mean, we're trying to do good with that. I'm grateful that we're in a county where it's probably not as prevalent as some of the other bigger counties, but it definitely is here. And we have to watch those cases. I've got several now, I've got, whether it's a child that I eventually find in another state or a child I find down in Atlanta somewhere, they've been, and they're missing, parents are coming in, they're missing for weeks or months, and we finally get them, I'm gonna hold them.
Yes, ma'am. I can tell from your voice, and it just means being an old man, been around this a little bit, that you are really being inundated with a whole lot of work, and you're reaching out for, say, I need some help. And better word, passion.
We love it.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, the endings, what I would say, is sometimes the stories are sad as they go through the journey, right? But the endings are generally good. So it's really, really rewarding, great work. And I just want the best for every kid. I live here, I want the best for every
Yes,
kid.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I guess what I'm saying is especially when it comes to motel, and I visit motels, and there's a lot of families. And I think when we were reaching out to help family, people with rent and everything, we never did reach out and say, if you're living in a motel, find them a way out. Say, well, we'll pay your bill and give you enough money if you can find you a place to live. At least give them a start in their own building. We didn't do that. And I think the reason why we didn't do it, I'm pretty sure Commissioner Sanders, she had the right idea. Said we need to reach out to those people and help them. But, and we knew, at least I know, DFAC was in trouble because I reached out to my representative, James Russell, and we talked annually, maybe twice a month, and we try to find what's going on in there. And it's not being maybe funded, and like you said, not enough people making money as they should to help people. But
It was difficult because it's just kind of a statewide issue. We need more, also, obviously, you need more foster care families, but you need more, we have big seeing kids that have more significant mental health issues. I mean, to the point they need to have more facilities or more beds available in these facilities, and we don't have them. So then it becomes an issue, they can't put them with a foster care family, because maybe they feel the child is too dangerous, or they're too volatile. They meet the criteria that they should be in a facility, but we don't have a bed space in the facility. So it's just this, I realize it's a
Yes,
giant
ma'am.
problem that the legislature is really going to have to take care of in the long run. But speaking to hoteling, even with families, regular families that have their children in hotels, you'll find that affects truancy. That affects this kids' school attendance. The parents live in hotels. Do they have transportation? We don't have transportation. Can they
I met families like that.
they're obviously don't know this because y'all deal with it all day. I mean, but it's just like the issues abound, and we're trying to do what we can in our court to help every family one by one as much as we possibly can and get them as much support as they can with every agency. We work with everyone.
All right, so this is my final question.
Yes, sir.
If a child has to go into like a foster home, a place, do we have a place locally that we could send some of our kids to? Because I know one time they were sending kids to Texas or somewhere like that.
We
We're
have
out
a lot of foster care families here. We have foster families. We can send our kids anywhere in the state, which is great.
That's why virtual hearings have been so wonderful. We were forced to virtual hearings by COVID, but we can now have a hearing and the child can actually be at his or her school in South Georgia
4 hours away.
instead of having to be,
Not to drive all the way back to Newton.
and then they can go meet with their therapist immediately following court now.
Like I said, we have the option to place them anywhere in the state, get all their services, where, say, you're living in Savannah, your therapist, everything's going on. We can get feedbacks to help transport parents back and forth to do visits while the child is placed, with a foster family, depending. We try to place them, obviously, closer to the parents. We don't. DFACS does that. But they can work without the
Right.
whole state. Now, if they have relatives in another state, we'll go there too. We'll try to work that out. I mean, the idea is to have children with families.
So-
I would prefer family over everything. So if I've got an aunt or an uncle that's willing to try to take care of a child and they're in Alabama, what do we need to do to get this child to Alabama? And I'll continue to hear these hearings for a while until we transfer to Alabama. What do we need to do? And then I can zoom them in, right? And not make everybody drive every time they have to come for a court hearing. That part's great. I will say that's been a blessing.
So if we can look at your budget, if we can come close to it or give you the money that you're requesting, then that will go a long way since helping our kids more.
It does. It helps us move our paces faster, and I hate to say this, but I don't like these lengthy times in between hearings and to find out that things weren't done that I ordered and the kids are staying in care longer. We do our hearings pretty quickly, and sometimes we do them ahead of timeline, but it's because the goal is for me to get a kid out of foster care as soon as possible. It's not good for them to be in foster care for a long period of time. All the studies will show you this. So the point is that they deserve permanency. They deserve to know this is where I'm going to live. These are going to be my people. This is I get to go to this school. These are my friends. They need that stability. That structure is paramount, especially with a kid that may have behavioral issues or mental health issues. So to sit there and drag a case out for 2 and 3 years is unconscionable at some point. I mean, I realize that they're going to have some cases that kids are really sick, but the goal should be that we've got some permanency absolutely as soon as possible, and that's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanders. Judge Branch,
sir.
if you would, could you talk in the mic?
Yes,
Um,
sorry. I wander really
That's
bad.
okay.
I'm a mover.
I felt your passion behind it. Again, thank you for all that you do. I'm a part of the PLN network and the core network for NACO, where they actually send me to various
Yes.
counties across the United States to learn about the behavioral health, our youth. So that's why it's such a passion, and you and I sit on the Family Connection
know.
Board. And just to see I know we looked at those numbers that affecting our youth in Newton County. There's a study, commissioners, that was done on our youth in Newton County through Family Connection. If you look at those numbers, the infidelity rate, the rate of, as you talked about, sex trafficking just for Newton County, then we need to be assisting our DFACS and our courts, because when I go to these other counties in other states, the county is involved with providing the housing, with providing all of that. As far as, you said, they're standing hotels. When I had to go study Colorado, Adams County, that county actually provided housing for those foster care. the inside of their building, their administrative building is an actual apartment to be able to house those kids when they been taken from for DFACS.
Yes.
They have a nice apartment where they feel like they don't have to sit on the floor. They're
I
comfortable.
would think it would be scary. If I
Yeah.
was a child that had to stay in a hotel, I have a perfect
Yeah, so the-
stranger that has to be inside my hotel room where I'm supposed to sleep, and I don't know who this person is because they're paid there to sit there and watch them. To me, that's scary.
Yeah.
And so I can't fathom what that feels like, that you just got removed and now you're just in this hotel room and this perfect stranger's just gonna sit in a chair next to you and watch you
Yeah.
sleep, and you can't leave that hotel room. That's scary to me. And oh my gosh, and the runaways, they run from the hotel rooms. It's all the time. So that's the other thing, is that we're trying to, then we have to find them because they're like, I'm not staying here. They won't let me have my phone. I'm scared to be here and not have my phone, so I can't contact somebody if I need them or if I need help. That's scary. So I agree with you 100%. I can't advocate enough for anything that you can do for the Department of Family and Children's Services, because they need all the support that we can possibly give them. That is a incredibly difficult job, and it can be a very thankless job. And they need as much staff as they can get, but the housing issue is a problem, and it's a problem statewide. So anything that Newton County can do, 100% behind it.
And I'm all for, I know you said you cut your budget kind of for the education and the traveling. I am all for education. I believe that you can't just sit in Newton County and learn. You have
No,
to
you
get
can't.
out.
You have to get out. And I try to do
and
as many things as I
learn.
can within the state, because I also, but that's
Yes.
why, but I think there had been a history of just doing a lot of traveling that maybe I just didn't feel like was completely necessary. So I don't want to spend dollars I don't have to spend, because we do have a lot of people that come in. I'm a trainer for the National Drug Court Institute.
Okay.
So I travel and train all over the country and set up other drug courts, right, all over the country. But when we have them in Georgia, that means all those people are coming in from other states to train you, but you can do it in your home state. So there's no reason for me to spend the extra dollars, right, than to go somewhere else, when I know that when I'm one of the people that's the facilitator, the
Gotcha.
presenter, I get to go out and I know the people that are coming in. So those kind of things I think that we can do in-house and save the county some money and not
Okay.
spend all that. I guess is what I'm trying to do anyway. If something changes, then I would obviously come and tell you, but my goal is to try to cut where I can, and I'd rather spend my money on my staff and my kids, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you again for all that you do. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, thank y'all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Judge Branch.
Thank
you, Judge. Thank both of you
Thank
for your presentation today. I always am impressed with the way that you effectively budget your department. I think it is amazing for you to really be able to see exactly what monies you're utilizing and what monies you aren't, and you're willing to basically look at your numbers and say, I want to be true to my budget versus inflating my budget when I don't really have to.
Yeah, I'm trying to be as true as we can.
Right.
Also, so I was like,
You have no idea how much that warms our hearts.
Oh, it does,
as two
because we spend a
lawyers
lot
Yeah.
of these budget numbers.
We're like,
Right.
a lot of days doing this. We've been like, okay, what do we think? I got $200 more here. I'm like, it's really, yeah.
Right, and it means a lot, and hopefully I speak for the entire board, because we have so many departments and so many areas that we're trying to do our best to fund. And so we want to make sure that we are getting the appropriate amount of funding to everybody,
Right.
so that they can be effective and they can impact in each one of their areas of work or in their department. You had mentioned the $15,000 savings, and maybe I missed it,
I thought it was.
but were you wanting to utilize that somewhere else?
Well, I was hoping that 15,000 would go towards, I know that if I was gonna increase Judge Edgar's hours to 4 days a week instead of 3,
Right.
the salary increase was $17,600, so I was hoping to offset it so that you're obviously gonna increase her salary, but the savings is in the other area, so that's
Right.
really looking at $2,600, which I felt like might not be so terrifying for y'all if I said that, and that you might consider it. So then the only other large expense was getting the other deputy clerk, if that was a possibility. And so I wanted to ask for that, because we would like to be able, once we move her to 4 days a week, then to simultaneously run courts, so that we can catch these cases and go at the pace that we need to go to meet well, first we can't have the backlog, but to meet our statutory guidelines with the timeframes. So you have to realize, like, every Monday and Wednesday, I do nothing but criminal cases, aside from we have accountability courts too, but I'm in court doing just that. Well, then, if we could open up a situation where then it opens up where she can do maybe Zoom hearings when she does nothing but DFACS dependency cases on a day that I'm in court doing just delinquency, we start double doing things. Because we may take a whole day to do, like termination of parental rights can be, if they're contested, they're long hearings. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that comes into play. That might be, it's an 8-hour hearing. It might be 2 days. I've done it for 2 and 3 days where I've got to like stack them out and find new days because it's a lot and a lot of arguing. So that's just one case. And typically we're trying to do them every hour to 2 hours depending upon how many kids are in the family and how much evidence we're gonna have to go through. So that's really that's what we're asking for, and that's why.
So if I'm hearing you correctly,
sir.
so you want to take 2,600 of the 15,000 and put towards an additional day for judge, and then the remaining 12,400 will go to a new position.
Nope.
No. Okay, so that's why I wanted to clarify.
I'm asking you for a lot more than that.
Okay.
I want to take additional, you're gonna say 15,000. What I'm asking for, the total that I'm asking for, once we're done with the deputy clerk and for the additional 2,600 for the extra day for Judge Edgar, is the total amount I'm asking for is $36,482. That does not include benefits for the deputy clerk.
$36,482.
$82, not including benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. I tried to get it as
Okay.
close as I could that Judge Edgar was gonna be like a wash, but I got it to about 2,600. We kept
So we're
playing with the
saving,
numbers.
so we're saving 15,000,
But I'm
we're being-
asking for 17,600 for Judge Edgar and then another 35,882 for the deputy clerk. So if you take 35,882 plus the 17,600 and then back out my 15,000, it's gonna leave you with $36,482 plus benefits for those positions.
Okay, so
Make
now you
sense? Does that
just
make
confused
sense?
me. I guess because what I was looking at is the 36,482 less the 15,000, which brought to 21,482. Okay,
This would be to add today.
okay,
Add
17,
today.
okay,
You could back out that 15,000 out of that, so maybe I'm still asking for 2,600.
Correct.
Plus the new clerk
okay.
for a total of this.
So actually it's an increase of 36,482. Okay, okay. That makes sense now. That makes sense. Okay.
I literally have to old school and just type it all out. That's
Yes,
how it works
that's
for me,
perfect.
otherwise I can't see it.
Okay, that's
Does that make
perfect. So I
sense?
yes, I
Okay.
just wanted to kind of see what the overall
Yes, sir, so
increase
that's the
was.
overall view, is the increase with the budget would be 36,482 plus benefits.
Okay, thank you.
All
That's
right, we
that was
good?
my question.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No?
Thank you, Judge.
Thank y'all for your
Thank
time
you.
and for
Thank
getting us in
you.
the morning, we appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm gonna go to court. Have a good day.
Thanks. Okay, okay. We'll take a restroom break until she gets here.
Testing.
There you go. There you go.
Testing. That's better there.
Yep, that's it.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. All right, good morning. Good morning. It is it's a pleasure to be before you this morning on presenting to you fiscal year 2024 budget request. I have with me today Ruben Bambello, also is Randy Burge, who's my executive assistant, and Ms. Sherry Dollar, who's a part of the finance team. Just to give you a little overview, and all of you getting there? Okay. Just to give you just a little bit of overview of our organization. Again, we're 24/7, 365 days of the week. We're a full-service organization. It says that it's 248 current employees. I think that number has changed. Perhaps we have not updated that number. We're just going from some of the information. We have our traffic unit, our civil unit, which, first of all, our traffic unit is responsible for the enforcement of the highways. Our civil unit is responsible for our services of warrants, civil process. K-9 is responsible for working in schools, also working drugs within the community. Our CHAMPS organization. We have 3 officers working that particular division. We've graduated more than 30,000 CHAMPS students, and I just finished a class just a few minutes ago. Very excited over at the theme school. Our heat unit is also traffic and alcohol related issues. School resource officers, we are the primary law enforcement officer for the school system. We have responsibility of more than 19,000 students, close to 20,000 students here in the Newton County public schools. Criminal investigations unit, simple as that. We investigate all crimes. Court services, handle the court services. Detention, it's the jail of inmate services, those who take grievance from our inmates. And special response is part of the jail division. Special investigation unit is another unit that works strictly within the community and target organized crime, drugs, and so forth. Our SWAT unit is the one that call upon when the everyday officers cannot handle the situation. Finance unit, again, is those individuals you see here with me today, along with the grant administration. We have a chaplains unit, and we have a public information. We have requesting funds for the Sheriff's Office, jail detention, West Side Precinct, and East Side, as well as the SRO. Ruben will come before you and will somewhat dissect the budget and the budget request that we're asking, as it may appear to you when you look at the line items from this year compared to this last budget cycle compared to what we're requesting. It may appear that we're asking for an excessive amount, but if you look closely, and I think Ruben will be able to give you that information along with our finance person here for the county. Will be able to tell you some of the things that happened in the previous budget that was not listed. So we're only just asking for what we feel is a fair share of the taxpayer dollars, so that we can continue to do the work that they're asking us to do and expecting for us to carry out. Any questions related to concerns outside of the numbers, I will handle those questions, and those questions that you may have specifically about the numbers would be Mr. Bambello.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Good morning, County Commissioners. As mentioned, I'm going to go through The funding request, one of the things that we really pride ourselves in, I know that we look at numbers and we're always, in tune, especially myself, in looking at numbers every single day, is that we have a very collaborative way of doing our numbers here at the Sheriff's Office. It's not done in a vacuum. I want to go back to this slide really quickly. And I know there's maybe some divisions that we're missing, but one of the things that we do every single year is that we get together, not just the sheriff, myself, and a few others, but we get together with every single division and get their feedback. We want to make sure, because as much as we know about the whole scope of services within the sheriff's office, it's not until you work with the individual employee, the individual leads, the individual leadership, do we truly understand those needs? So, because we want to make this budget as accurate as possible. That's why, and maybe some of the budget documents are probably a little thicker than some of the other ones you've seen, because we wanted to make sure that we include very specific detail. It's no use of mentioning something that you don't have at least an understanding of what you're potentially going to fund. And so we wanted to make sure to encourage, more departments to invite their employees, invite their staff to make sure that their budget is reflective of the actual needs that's happening on the ground floor. So with that said, our budget request for the Sheriff's Office, that includes many of the divisions that were mentioned. About 68% of it consists of personnel, 18% operating expenses, and 14% capital. Some of the highlights, I just wanted to point out on that. Last year we did also make a request for capital funds. Unfortunately, that wasn't, we got no funding for that, and so we did include some of those capital funds that are still in need into this year's budget request. So approximately, like I said, about 3.3, a little bit shy of that is capital requests. A lot of operating expenses have not only increased, but have significantly increased, and that's given us an opportunity to relook at those strategies, relook at some of the things. There are some things that we could work, very closely with our vendors on, but other things, that we do need to be able to look twice, but also looking at those funders we're looking at those vendors to see if they could provide us with a better deal, with a better incentive, strategy, so that we can continue our relationship with them or seek another vendor. So those are some of the things that we put together for the Sheriff's Office request. For the jail detention request, the Sheriff's Office, as has been said many times before, it is a 24/7, 365 facility. The detention center, of course, is not only a facility where people are employed at, but the people that people actually live at. As we know, inmates at any given time, you can have 400, 500, even north of 500 inmates. As a quick example, I calculated the number of meals that we had in any given fiscal year. So if you just use a round number of 500, times that by 3 meals a day, times it by 365, you're talking about over 570,000 inmate meals that are given in any given year. That's over 1.5 million meals in a 2-year period. So that's a lot of meals that go out. In addition to that, medical services are a big cost. That's the inmate medical services that inmates have while they're there. So what is a little different about this budget, you'll see that compared to the previous budget, you'll have a higher amount of operating expenses. And I apologize, it says personnel twice, but the yellow portion should say capital. But 37% is operating expenses, 15% is capital expenses, and we are asking, of those 3 million, making sure that there's funds to be able to afford some of new equipment that we have in our inmate kitchen. As I said before, over 500,000 meals go out in any given year, and with all the wear and tear coming across those machines, these are industrial machines that usually could last a good period of time, but when you're handling, once again, over 500,000 meals a year, a lot of the wear and tear goes a little quicker. And so, some of the requests include some of those kitchen equipment. We're also looking to have some funds to fund our training center, and that's, we call it the King Bostic House, to provide some refurbishments there. And the purpose of that is to provide training to all of our officers, including detention and patrol officers as well, so we could have adequate training opportunities available for them. The next, and these are the what we call the smaller budgets, our West Side Precinct. We have no personnel dollars attached to there, but it's basically consists of operating expenses and capital expenses. Nothing really new from year to year, just some slight changes. The only thing that has been different with that one is that we're requesting a scanner, and that's similar to when I came into the building, it was a scanner that looks similar to that. We're requesting a new scanner and a new metal detector, and that consists of the $41,500 in capital expenses there. And lastly, the east side precinct of all of that is operating expenses. That is very similar. Actually, I think it came about $1,000 under from the previous year. We have minimal costs there. However, we did encounter a situation where we had to use some additional funds we didn't anticipate, and that goes without saying. For any type of these precincts, you can anticipate when you anticipate, but the unknown sometimes always happens. So that's just a very high-level overview of some of our, and I forgot the student resource officer. As you may know, student resource officers are out in a lot of our Newton County schools. 83% of that funding is dedicated to personnel, 12% of operation, and 5% of capital. Really what that is looking at in terms of specificity for our capital is funding for a vehicle. And as you know, when you buy a vehicle, and by the way, the vehicle market has changed nowadays. Gone are the days when you can just go to the dealer and grab a car. You have to special order most of these vehicles. And then, as you know, a lot of these vehicles, especially patrol vehicles, it's not just the cost of the vehicle, but the type of equipment that you put in. So, for example, a vehicle that is equipped for a K-9 unit must be equipped, with similar equipment, but also additional equipment as well. And so the cost of that includes the price of the vehicle plus the equipment that is required for that. So, like I said, that was just a very high-level overview, and if you have any questions, we're more than welcome to answer them.
Any questions? Commissioner Edwards.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. So, what jumps off at me is the other equipment in 3 different categories increased significantly. What would that include?
Sure. So, so for example, in the sheriff's office budget, there's a $50,000 request, and that would include 2 K-9 dogs, ballistic shields, bulletproof ballistic shields, and a larger poster printer that we were wanting to purchase. And some of these were included in last year's request for all of them, but unfortunately we didn't get funding for that. For the jail side of the house, as mentioned, with the amount of meals that we have in our inmate kitchen, there's a lot of the things that require to be updated, such as a industrial dishwasher, ice machine, kitchen ovens, kitchen steamer, a new CVSA machine, which is a voice stress analyze machine. So that is included in the $125,000 in other expenses. And then I said in the West Side District, also included there that wasn't included last year is the scanner and then the metal detector.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Commissioner Henderson.
If you will, let me respond to the equipment that's going to be used down in the kitchen. It's very important that we have that equipment replaced. We are, for instance, the ice machine as well as the dishwasher aging caused the dishwasher as well as the ice machine not to be as sanitized or look appropriate as what the inspectors would want us to have it. So if they go in there and the machine is dingy or whatever the case may be, then the inspectors, the health inspectors will come in and they will shut us down. And that is the last thing that you would want, for the inspectors to come in and say, we no longer can provide meals to the inmates. So those are 2 very important components. We also mentioned about the medical unit. We have no way to screen. We have no way to select who we house there in the jail. So it's at any given time, our bill can be an excessive amount of what our normal bill would be. And to give you a prime example, right now we're housing inmates who have been, one in particular who was wounded and released from the hospital. And now that person is in our care, and we're having to do what the hospital would do 24/7 in our medical unit. We have other individuals who are on dialysis. We have to make sure all of that is taken care of every day, or how many days a week we have to do that. We have other individuals who have wound care. We have to make sure that we provide the wound care for these individuals, whether it's in-house or whether we're having to take them to a specialist. We have to do that. So those are the things that cause our medical unit to increase. And for all of you, if you don't know it, our facility, as well as many facilities throughout the state, have turned into a mental institution. That's what it is. 70% of our inmates down there are mentally disturbed in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So that's what we're dealing with. So I ask you to, especially these areas here, I ask you to look at it real close. And everything that we have put in our budget, it is a need. And while I'm here, I'll make this appeal to you again. The office down here, where you have staff, I have staff working out of each and every day, I want you to know this. We need to do something for this building here on a given day, and I invite you, when it rains, you need boots to get into the building. And we've asked you on several occasions to do something about it. We've told you before, there's mold downstairs in the building. And it's time now, we need to have something done about it. The next day it rained, I'm going to call each and every last one of you. As a matter of fact, my intention was to have it done this last, on Sunday, on Monday morning, to have you to come down and take a look at it. But every last one of the employees spent majority of the day getting water up, and they was wearing boots. There's no sense in that. There's no sense in that. And I've asked many times before. As a matter of fact, I thought we had $500,000 to get the building repaired at some point in time. That wasn't the case, so I was told. But it is time now that you do something about it, and sooner or later, if we don't do something about it, then having to do something about it is going to do something to us. You follow me? So what I'm saying is time now that we do something about the water and the mold in the building here next door.
Commissioner Henderson. First of all, thank you. I had about, I think, 3 questions. And I'm going to jump to to my latter question is that I heard there was black mold down there in that particular building. And we know that black mold do cause people to get very sick, and they say it grows in you. I'm not quite sure, but I know it's similar to what the young lady Costa said that they had in there, and that I guess the county came in and cleaned it up for them there. But if we could get the mold out of the building, and we could, and if we could fix it up, my understanding is that there may be some storage issues with Miss Hayes. In other words, she's running out of space. And I would like to see us fix it, get the mold out. And I still like for the officers who've been in there, really go and get some type of physical to make sure that they're okay. I'd rather be in, behind the curtain, I'd rather be in front of the curtain than behind the curtain. And when people start getting sick from stuff like that, I think it's a liability. Excuse me, it's a bigger liability because my understanding is that we don't have no insurance. I don't know how the sheriff department operates on that, but I would like to get kind of address that too as well. As soon as possible. I think it's as soon as possible, not tomorrow, next day, as soon as possible. And so I was hoping that we may have a county manager in place who we could ask to go ahead and address that particular issue and bring something back to the board. The second issue was this. I noticed over at the administrative building that we only have one detective. You know, the thing you go through. What's the right word for that? The
Scanner?
What you go through.
Scanner.
Yes, sir. We don't have one working in there, and I believe we should have two, one at both ends, because if you come in from the end from the, I'm not Texas office, but the election office, then somebody's shooting through there, they can run through there and do what they want to do. If they had a bomb, they just run in there and shoot and blow them up right there. So I think that we need to start looking at security. And if you look at TV, and I watch it, you see what something bad happened to innocent people all the time. And I remember what it's not if it's going to happen, it's when. And I got that straight from Proud, our sheriffs. I get it straight from Sheriff Brown. So I'd rather have myself at least trying to do the best I could before something happened. Thank you.
Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you so much, Sheriff, and also your staff for providing this. I have been saying this from day one since I stepped into this position. We have to become more of a proactive county instead of a reactive county. I had no idea that was happening in that building, so we have to get communication with the commissioners to know what's going on. This is the first time I've even heard that building had mold and you have to wear boots to get into it. So we have to work on our communication to make sure all the commissioners are informed of everything that's happening, because I would have never sat back and not said anything about that. I don't believe anybody should be in any harmful situations. That human capital should be our #1 priority here in the county. But I wanted to ask a question about, I have the most dense area in the county, which is the western part of District 3. I just heard last night on one of my town halls that a youth was struck by a car trying to cross the intersection just recently, 2 days ago, a youth. And so that's another issue. So commissioners, I hope you're listening before you place a youth facility in the intersection, because they have to cross the street and they can get struck by a car. So, but Fairview Community Park, what do we need to help boost up the activity there? As far, do you need more manpower, or what do we need for that area? Because with us building more houses, which we need to start including you in that discussion of the amount of houses that are coming in the area. That was also the talk that was on my town hall. 2 things should be considered before we start building: public safety, our school, and all those 2 things should be part of the checks and balances before we even approve any one building. So what do we need? Because that area, we're having, 4 homes that are being built now. You have a apartment complex behind Jen you have to look at. And so there's more people gonna be coming into District 3, and I'm sure you all are not aware of all the building that has been approved. So I know it's a lot that I just said, so that's my concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. It's a lot that you put on the table. We're currently looking at determining what would be best for that pocket park up there. We've not completed a total assessment, but I'll go back to the original statement that you just said. Not just now, but many times before, I have always said law enforcement need to be at the table anytime there's a decision to be made. When you're going to increase the population and you're going to bring in special projects, I've always said law enforcement need to be at the table. When you go back to look at when this park was being put in place, I was against it. I was against it because of the fact I think recreation was against putting the park there. Many of the citizens was against it, putting the park there. And I know we're talking about water under the bridge, but sometimes it's good to bring it up because hopefully this storm here, we will never find ourselves in this storm again. I hope we're out of it now because of the fact we see not having law enforcement at the table to talk about these things that can happen, will happen, and how they will happen affects our communities. There are a number of things that we're looking at. Again, I do not have that file with me today, but I'll be more than happy to share with you. But the mistake goes back to years ago, putting the park there. Now we got to look at how to best protect the park, not just protect the park, but protect those citizens who live up there in the park. That's the main thing. Whether the park stay or whether the park go, the most important piece is the citizens there. And as long as that park stays open there. We're gonna have people who's gonna drift in from Rockdale County. We have folks who are gonna drift in from every open area because the park is open. We need to get recreation involved. That's one of the things we need to do. We cannot stand there and stay there 24/7, nor can recreation, but if you had someone from recreation assigned to these parks, that would help. But I'll have more information for you when we meet.
Any more questions for the sheriff? Commissioner Henderson.
It's not a long question. It's that you know, I like some parents have kids in school, and when your child comes back and tell you that they had the dogs out in the schools, and excuse me, there's nobody who would think enough to call you and say, you know, we had a drug bust in our school, and we kind of looking at making it better. And it's my understanding that it's happening in all of our schools about drug busts, where it's our sheriff's department, if it's in the unincorporated, have to send the dog and stuff in. I think it's be better for us as parents and as citizens that we at the very least be informed what's happening in our schools. And I think the parents, as a parent, I'm speaking of parents, we like getting that information. And I think she come from the school system, not, at least because they call us and we're not going to have school today, but yet they won't call us and say students got drugs in our schools.
I'll speak to the school and encourage them to maybe communicate with the public.
Thanks, sir. Want to go on a break? All right. I want to take a 15-minute break. we're gonna go back into our work session. Ms. Brittany?
Up next on the schedule, we have Marcus Jordan, the tax commissioner, and his information can be found on page 161 of your books.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Commissioners. How y'all doing today?
Morning.
I guess, have y'all had time to look at everything? No, this is our first time. Oh, okay. I guess to point out a couple of things that's in there is, one thing that you will see that is different is actual postage, because I think postage price has increased to 60 cents per mailing. And then another thing that may stick out is we were looking at trying to do something. Last year we did a little work with allowed a college intern in for a couple of weeks. I want to look into kind of expanding that out to the summertime and also during the holiday season, which will help us alleviate some of the phone calls and customer complaints about the bills and stuff. So we're looking to go in a new direction with that and bringing in some internships to come in and work with us. So those are two things that really stand out that I put in there.
I'm not sure.
While y'all looking, I do want to point out also, we did our tax sale in December, and it actually generated, we were able to, I think it was like 52 parcels that we were able to satisfy debts, which the debts were like 158,000, but also in that time, it generated over $500,000 in excess funds. So we've got to, once we're doing that, you'll start seeing that as we do more tax sales, you'll see some monies that we're trying to allocate for advertising, in which a lot of that money we do get back because it's built into the actual service to those that pay the bill.
You finished?
Yeah, I'm just waiting on you.
Any questions, guys? Commissioner Mason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, for coming before us and presenting your budget. I just had a couple questions on a couple line items. Do you mind explaining the increase from professional, contract, rental, and equipment, as well as advertising? So those three, I'm kind of seeing a major increase.
You say,
So,
which line item first? Which one you say
the
professional?
professional contracted from 2,500 to 10,000. So it's right under the retirement contribution and above legal services.
I didn't print that. That one actually is $10,000 for professional services.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking at is when we do our mailing, there is a setup fee. As like last year it was $15,000. And notice the original budget, I think we had like 42,000 or something, but then we end up it's showing 2,500. But yeah, it should have been roughly 15,000. So that's what that 10,000 is for, that setup fee when we do our property tax bill and mailing.
Okay. And then the
What was the other one?
rental of equipment. So it went from
Oh,
20
okay.
to 39.
Now on that one, I guess the biggest thing on there is a cash handling machine where we're able to detect counterfeits, but it's not set in stone that I'm actually looking to purchase that equipment. And it also will allow us to, actually, at the end of the day, you just drop your drawer and it actually tallies all the money. So it's gonna be time efficiency towards the cashiers. This is just something that we're looking the possibility of doing as we continue, as the county continues to grow and we get more customers, so we're actually servicing more citizens. The money count at the end of the day is getting larger, so kind of eliminate the ability of human error and kind of allowing the actual technology to do the work on that. So that's one of those pipe dreams we're seeing, we're looking into getting. So that's where you see that. So that's the largest thing on there. And the other two items in there are just our lease copiers. But yes, that's a cash handling money system that we're looking to kind of try to implement and kind of improve efficiency with the clerks and our money counter and the ability to detect counterfeits.
Okay. So that 36.8 will be multiple of those, or that's just the amount for one?
It's just the amount for one.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And then advertising was the last one, from 3,500 to 10,000.
Yeah, that goes back to the advertising of tax sales, because as the last tax sale we did, I think the advertising was about $9,600. But again, that money we kind of recoup back once the tax property is sold, and we kind of get it back, and we could actually you probably end up with it back at the end of the year because it's just sitting there. But I'd rather just have it there. So I think last year, Britt, I had to contact you, and we had to kind of cut checks and stuff. But if I got it already built in there, then we can just do it, and then it's set up to where the money really goes back to you all.
And then, actually, I forgot this one, the contract labor from 19.2 to 44.2.
Again, that's where I was speaking about doing internships.
Okay. And that's for like one, or how many, did you say how many?
I don't have a set number, but I was looking at either 2 during the summertime and either the possibility of 2 or 3 during the holiday season.
I think that was all I had. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Henderson.
I think you kind of answered my question concerning the internship. So internship, we're not paying the money, am I? Or do
Yes.
we pay?
Yes, you
how
will
much?
give them a salary.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thanks, sir.
Was it? All right, well, thank you all. You all enjoy your day,
You too.
and we're glad to be of service to Newton County. Y'all take care.
Brittany, did you budget in, and I'm sorry if I didn't hear that portion, the governor is going to increase the state by 2,000. Is that budgeted in there as well? Okay, just want to make sure.
We're running a little bit ahead of time. I think LaTanya just called Judge Bell, and she's headed over here.
Okay. Well, we're gonna break until she get here.
All right, whoa, that went from not at all to really loud. I'm Judge Melanie Bell. I'm here to propose budgets for the probate court and magistrate court. I'm going to start with probate because I'm not asking for anything, any sort of inordinate spending or anything out of the ordinary. If you look at the comparison on the probate budget from FY23 to FY24, you are going to notice about a $65,000 increase in the regular employees. That is actually a position that y'all approved FY23, but not to be filled until January. So we have now filled that position, and I confirm with Ms. White that money is already now in my FY23 budget, but before it was in the contingency. So while it looks like this huge increase in regular employees in probate, there's not. What that's going to end up being is just the step increases will be the main increases that we of course hope that you will continue as you've done for the county employees. Other than that, there's a couple of things via just inflation, things that have been costing us more lately, which we're all unfortunately feeling. I know our travel went up. In magistrate, we've been trying not to travel as much because there's over 600 magistrates in the state. They can afford to record trainings, and so when we can, we've been trying to do the recorded mandatory training instead of traveling to save money. Probate, there's only 200 probate judges and associate judges. So I'm on the training council for probate, and fiscally we can't afford the cost of recording, so we have to travel in person to those. So I know Judge Bryant and I will be in Athens next week. We'll be coming back and forth. And then in May for traffic court, we will be down in St. Simons. And I'm sure y'all have seen the hotels have drastically increased pretty big. So that's probably the next biggest thing, is that I added more to the travel budget because we are required to travel. If there's no questions about my probate budget, then I'll move to the magistrate budget. Couple things I want you to note about that. First, you will see the top line and regular employees, if you have the breakdown, is for a Superior Court judge supplement. That is not mine. He does not work for me. That's our newest judge, Judge Morris. That's his county supplement, and it was inadvertently put under the magistrate budget by HR. So my understanding is he's been paid out of my budget once or twice, which they're fixing, and he's still showing on your documentation, but obviously that $21,900 will not actually come from the magistrate budget. That'll be under Superior Court's budget. However, while you're looking at that more detailed breakdown, for future reference, I'd like you to note that he receives a $21,000 supplement to his salary, where Judge Dagonia makes $18,000 a year, and Judge Wells Thomas makes $29,000 a year. I'll be addressing that next year with my budget requests. So main thing in magistrate, again, I'll say the same thing. There's a couple of things that went up by way of inflation, travel, those sorts of things. And I have added in, we've been sending one clerk to training. Probate's training is much, much cheaper for clerks than magistrate is, and I can't get a really good answer for why that is. But we have started sending two of our clerks. Miss Teresa Johnson has been with the county, I think this will be year 33. We celebrated her 30th anniversary right before the pandemic. She's not going anywhere anytime soon, but she always lets me know that as soon as she can retire, she will be retiring. So I am beginning to groom Gina Townsend in my office to take over her position eventually. One of the things that both courts have been focusing on in our trainings is continuity of services and continuity, so we have both for the judges and your clerks, not to have to look for a chief clerk out of the blue. So beginning to send Ms. Townsend this year to training as well, so that she can start getting the sort of advanced knowledge that Ms. Johnson has. The main thing that you're going to see in the magistrate budget is a request for another deputy clerk 2. I provided you just a printout of our case numbers 2020 to where we are last Friday in 2023. I picked these 4 things: civil claims, dispossessories, county ordinances, and warrant applications, because they all require court time by the judges, but more importantly, that requires the most work by the clerks. We have a lot of other things that we do, of course, issuing search warrants and arrest warrants. All of those come through my office, but that's primarily work of the judge. We issue the warrants. The clerks will very quickly, as far as a search warrant, enter them into the system. Our arrest warrants are all done electronically, so they download to the system, so not a lot of involvement from the clerks. You can see that our numbers are skewing what you would expect. Obviously, 2020, everything is lower because we were in the pandemic. Magistrate courts didn't start back. We were always open and operating, but we didn't start back to court until July of 2020, whereas probate courts had to start back having court in May and issuing those firearms permits. 2021, we were still under, for part of that year, the moratorium, the federal moratorium on evictions, before the Supreme Court issued its opinion. You can see that your code enforcement and animal services are doing their jobs, however, because in 2022, we were up on almost 1,000 more dispossessories than the previous 2 years, and we had almost 1,000 county ordinance cases. They tend to be, just so y'all know, they are good cases that are being presented. It's not that I find or Judge Bryant finds everybody guilty, but they're very well worked up cases, and we're trying to do things to change behavior and not just fine people. We're requiring them to get their yards cleaned up. If they litter elsewhere, we're requiring community service to make up for that. For our animal cases, I have located a class on a website called PAW EDU, because we found out a lot of people are very uneducated when they get pets, in particular dogs, and we see a lot of dogs running at large and a lot of dogs being mistreated. And so I've started requiring that class, which is a 2-hour video class that they then have to take a test and pass to show that they actually paid attention. And the idea, again, is that behavioral change that we're looking for, so that we're not having people come back to court. But as you can see, our dispossessories are up. That's to be expected, because all the moratoriums have ended, but also because we have more apartment complexes between the county and the city. And we are seeing, what you'll see across the state is apartments equal evictions. That's just reality. When you have a one-on-one landlord-tenant, they might work with the tenant a little bit more, but apartment complexes, they're typically owned by bigger organizations that have policies in place for when you file, and so those are continuing to go up. I actually gave you the photos I did because numbers say one thing, but they always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's the desk of Miss Gina Townsend, just once in January, once in February, and once in March. That's one day of filings. So she is in charge. The way we are set up currently, based on the staffing we have 2 people that work the front window. Mr. Winters is assigned to civil, and our newest employee, I'm forgetting her last name, Alexis, is assigned to criminal. I have one other criminal clerk who handles, again, search warrants, arrest warrants, but also these county ordinances and warrant applications. And then we have Ms. Townsend and my chief clerk, Teresa Johnson, that do civil. Ms. Townsend right now is pretty much handling all the dispossessories. She also has to handle about half of the civil claims. She has to handle abandoned motor vehicle cases. We probably get 600 to 700 of those a year at least. So keeping up is becoming very difficult. The rules and the reason why magistrate court is referred to as the people's court, and the reason why it's attractive to people is, A, you save all the You don't do discovery like you do in Superior Court that can slow, or a state court if we had one, that would really slow things down. On a civil matter, you get served with a lawsuit, you file an answer, and within no less than 15 days, no more than 30 days, your case has to be on the calendar for trial. Dispossessories, we hold that court every week. I'm so grateful to Judge John Dagonia, who comes in every single Monday at 83 years old and handles our dispossessory calendar. He does a great job, and we're moving them through the system. But because we have tight guidelines on both of those, sometimes that can slow down other things because we just simply don't have enough people to work. So what I'm looking for is one clerk that would handle dispossessories. Ms. Townsend would be able to assist them and focus on her civil claims. Ms. Johnson, in addition to supervising and dealing with the administrative sides of the office, she also deals with all of our garnishments, our FIFAs, our NOLA bonas, which are sort of the more complicated stuff on the judgment side. Once you get a judgment, there's a lot you have to go through to actually recover and get money. And she handles that stuff because it's a little more complicated than the average civil thing that we deal with. So that is my request for one clerk for that position. We haven't added anybody since 2018 to the magistrate court. And so that's why we're asking for that position. There was one more thing that popped in my mind while I was talking. And of course it's gone. That's what happens when you get over 45. So that's our primary request. There's nothing else that's sort of a large ask out there in either budget. I'm trying to be mindful. I think Ms. White can back me up that I pay really close attention, which is how I catch things like a Superior Court judge getting paid out of my budget, which was just a simple mistake, I know. But I pay very close attention to my budgets, and I work very hard to make sure we're not spending money we don't need to do. We try to share, if we can share something between magistrate and probate, we do that. For example, I've recently bought my clerk who handles county ordinances a color printer because we didn't have one in the office. And when you're looking at pictures of dogs in kennels and trying to determine if they are in inhumane or filthy conditions, it's hard to tell in black and white when you're dealing with sort of a brownish dog and what you're looking for is feces and water. It's hard to tell in black and white. So we bought her that, but traffic court has been using that as well from probate. Instead of buying two, we just are sharing one. So we do try to do that as much as possible. I'll just candidly tell you, magistrate has obviously a significantly lower budget, and my guess is has the lowest budget in the judicial center. However, I did speak with the chief in Bartow County when I was asked by my council to attend a special training, and I know Ms. White has always told me, and I've seen that play out. Bartow County is a county we compare ourselves a lot to because they're, not only does their population meet ours, but a lot of their sort of makeup of their community matches ours. So I just happened to ask Chief Bryson, how many judges do you have in your magistrate court? He is not the probate judge, he is simply the magistrate, and including him, there are 3 full-time judges and 2 part-time. We are operating with technically 2 full-time judges, but both of us also operate as probate judges and 2 full-times. But as I told my employees, I'm gonna push to get more judges in the next year, but I want to take care of them first, and by taking care of them, I take care of the public. We met, the 4 of us, and we all said that we were willing to kind of keep doing what we're doing, which is working a lot of extra hours because we don't have enough judges to make sure that we got enough clerks to move these cases, because if you're not moving cases, you're not doing your job. We are in both courts completely caught up from the pandemic, and we are functioning at the normal level following the pandemic. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Thank you. Any questions, guys?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Henderson.
I just want to thank you for doing such a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
We don't have anybody left on the schedule till after lunch, so we can take an early lunch.
Sound good. We'll reconvene at 1 o'clock. Okay. Okay. Thank y'all for coming this morning. Brittany, so we gonna meet at 12?